So welcome. This is the Egg Donation Choosing Your Egg Donor webinar. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes for people to join. Can see people are already starting to join, which is brilliant. But we'll just give people a few minutes because I know sometimes it can take some time to log on to Zoom. We all have the technical issues sometimes, don't we, girls? Amazing. How are you both today? You well?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm glad the rain stopped finally.
Yeah, I know.
Got some lovely sunshine at last. It's been awful.
It has indeed. I think, yeah, it was well due. There was flooding everywhere, so very pleased to see some sun. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Loads of people joining now, which is really nice to see. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. So just checking, Gurjinder and Debs, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, perfect.
Brilliant. So I think we'll just wait one more minute for everyone to join. And we've had a lot of questions sent in before the webinar today, which is really great. Lots of involvement from people. So really interesting topic that we're going to be covering. Fantastic. Lovely. Okay, brilliant. We've got loads of people on the call now, so that's absolutely great. So I will kick off. And so welcome everyone to this really interesting topic we're going to cover today. So just a little introduction, I suppose, to this webinar. We're going to be talking all things egg donation and how to choose your perfect egg donor. So please feel free to write any questions you have throughout the webinar on the Q&A on the Zoom call, and then we will cover as many as possible at the end. And yeah, I suppose we should just do a round of introduction. So I'll start with myself. My name is Caroline Allen. I am a midwife of 10 years and I now work for Apricity, and I run our patient onboarding team. So this is the team that welcome people like yourselves when you first want to come and talk to us talk to us about what it is that we do and how can we help you. So I lead that team of nurses, midwives and advisors. And Gurjinder, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Caroline. So I'm Gurjinder. I'm the egg donation specialist and fertility advisor at Apricity. I speak to people looking to receive donor eggs as part of their treatment. I also undertake matching of donors and our recipients. So yes, that's me.
Amazing. Thanks, Gurjinder. And Debs, our special guest today.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Debs and I am a 3-time egg donor with Apricity. And yeah, really looking forward to answering any questions that anyone has.
Amazing. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining, Debs. It's super special to have you on. I think when we've done sessions before with intended parents out there, I think one of the bits of feedback is that they really wish that they could hear from a donor. It really puts a personal touch on things, and it's been really good to get your perspective. So we'll hear from you a little bit more later. So thank you. So we will crack on. So I just wanted to start with a statistic really, in that there are more than 70,000 donor conceived children in this world that have been born since 1991, which is absolutely incredible. And another really interesting, I think surprising fact is that 1 in 6 IVF babies are donor conceived. And I think that's really relevant because I think sometimes when we're going through egg donation in particular, we can feel like it's exceptionally rare and we're the only ones going through it, but actually there's a huge community of people out there that are just like yourselves, and it's not as uncommon as you think. So I think we just wanted to start with that by saying you're in a really safe community, and we're here for you, and there are lots of other people around just like you. So first of all, I'm going to kick off, and I suppose I'll ask Gurjinder about this actually, is sort of what is the Outry egg donation program at Apricity and how does that work and what does that actually mean?
So Outry was set up in 2010. It used to be a standalone service where we only did kind of the matching side of things, so recruitment of donors and then matching. We wanted to carry on that care for patients throughout their treatments, throughout the whole journey and duration. So at the start of 2019, Outry partnered with Apricity. So we're now one company under Apricity. We're one team. You stay with us throughout your treatment and throughout the whole process. We have a team of dedicated advisors, we've got nurses, consultants, and it's all through Apricity.
Amazing, thank you. And I suppose then, what is different about Apricity, so I suppose, to other services that may have egg donation? I suppose the answer to that is it's about our donors and how they're different. So those donors that we recruit, can you tell us a little bit about what makes them special?
Yeah, so all of the donors that we onboard are donors we onboard ourselves. We don't bring them in from other kind of facilities, other countries or egg banks. We recruit them all ourselves. They have to be UK based. So all of the donors have to be residing in the UK. We have to obtain the NHS number as well. There's a lot of donor anonymity around kind of egg donation in the UK as well. So it's quite different in other countries, quite different abroad. But in the UK, any child born from egg donation or sperm donation have the right to retrieve the contact details and information about their donor from the age of 18. So that's all identifying information from the age of 18. We also take a lot of time to get to know our donors. So we take kind of their personality, what their hobbies are, their interests. We obviously take their physical traits as well. We actually have 2 pictures as well that we obtain from them to provide our recipients. So they're usually pictures of the donor under the age of about 5. So these pictures are what we provide. It's a very bespoke service. So we work a lot more differently to kind of traditional kind of egg banks where they have lists and lists of kind of donors available, whereas we kind of offer a very bespoke matching service. We also get to know the recipient on the other side as well. So we get to know, you know, what their hobbies are, their interests are. So to try and find a donor that really does kind of match on that side as well. The donors are all looked after by kind of our advisors. So they're looked after by the advisors. They have access to our app, which is incredible. It's a really good app where they can liaise with their advisor as and when they want to. Same goes for the recipients as well. All the donors also have to be over the age of 18, under the age of 36, and they do have to have a healthy BMI as well. It's quite an extensive list of kind of genetic abnormalities and hereditary conditions that we go through with the donor, just to ensure that there's no risk to any child born from her donation. Obviously, you know, egg donation is in the UK is an altruistic act, so we do trust and have to trust that the donor is telling us, you know, up to date and truthful information. There's no reason for her to kind of lie or withhold any information from us. So we gain quite a lot of information from her about family medical history as well. And then she does a lot of screening tests. So screening tests, it's quite a long list and you can see them on screen. But it's a very big profile of tests that we do just to ensure that there's no risks.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that it's an altruistic act, and I think that's really key is our donors aren't paid. We're not legally allowed to pay them. They are entitled to compensation to cover their expenses. But I think that's how you really tell, and we know from speaking to the donors every day, and obviously meeting people like Debs, who you'll hear from shortly, that our donors donate because they care and they want to, as opposed to the fact they're getting paid or any sort of other motivation. Yeah, and as Gurjinder said, they're fully screened, so actually you can be guaranteed and confident that you are actually getting good quality eggs at the end of it as well. So I suppose you sort of touched on it before, Gurjinder, about when you do the matching and what are those key criteria that we have to match to necessarily, but also the wider criteria that people may request, and then also what they actually receive about their donor as well.
Yeah. So we've got 4 characteristics that are the minimum matching criteria, and that's ethnicity, height, hair color, and eye color. So they're the 4 main characteristics that, you know, we have to match based on. And then we have kind of other ones which are hair type, so kind of like straight hair, wavy hair, curly hair, skin tone, the build of the donor as well. So we do take into consideration those sort of things as well, but we've got the 4 main kind of criteria. We also take into consideration, as I said before, the hobbies and interests of the donor. So as an example, it's always quite nice if you've got kind of a hobby, like for example, horse riding. That's not one that's comes up quite a lot, believe it or not. So a lot of people do horse riding, and I've never done it, but Debs does it. But it's always quite nice if there's a link, if there's something that kind of is quite similar in your interests and hobbies. Proven fertility. So some people want a donor that's, you know, got children of their own. And that's something we can definitely look at as well. People also want to know the motivations behind the donation. So why is this person donating their eggs? What are the reasons behind it? And we can provide all of that information. The donor writes something, it's called a personal profile or pen portrait. And that's where they include all information about themselves, and it gives you an insight of, you know, what the person, the donor's like. And we have kind of prompts. So it's things like, you know, what's your favorite childhood memory? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? So things like that. And it's quite nice to read. It's really, really lovely. I quite enjoy reading them as well. They're really, really, really nice. And then, as I said, the two pictures as well, the donor is a baby and a toddler. They're non-identifying, so if they're wearing like a school uniform or something, we do crop them accordingly. But the pictures help you envision what your donor looks like, because obviously you wouldn't know what she looks like at present. And also some people like to compare the pictures to their own when they're a similar sort of age. Or if you've got kind of children and you want to compare to your children. So it's quite nice with what you receive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, Gurjinder, something that goes into the matching that you do, but that the intended parents don't necessarily see, is you get obviously photos of the donor themselves. So
Yeah.
when you're doing the matching, of course, you're matching to what is sort of being requested by the hopeful parents, but you're
Yeah,
also you are able to look side by side at two people and say, oh my goodness, you guys look so similar, or
exactly.
that feature that you really wanted to carry through really does.
Yeah.
And obviously we can't share those photos because it would impact the anonymity, but as a matcher, that's something that you are also really looking for, isn't it, I
Yeah.
suppose?
Yeah, most definitely. And like a face shape, nose shape, lips, eyes, forehead, kind of bone structure. So we do look at all that side of things as well, because someone might come along and say, right, I've got, you know, I'm Caucasian, I've got blue eyes, and I've got blonde hair. We might find a donor with those characteristics, but they might not necessarily look like the intended parent. So, you know, we try and find someone that really does resemble you, if it's important to you. To some people, they say, actually, that doesn't matter. So we can do kind of the matching just based on the characteristics as well, if that's what, you know, what's wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really hope you talking about this actually gives people on this call this real sense that there is a human at the end of this, like really putting a lot of effort and time and
Yeah.
into making those perfect matches. And I know that is something that's super important to you, isn't it? And that's when you've had a good day, when you've been able to call someone and say, I've got the perfect donor for
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a really lovely part of the process that we're able to do. So I suppose now it's a good time to pass over to Debs. And as Debs mentioned, she's donated with the Our True program Apricity 3 times. And I will pass over to Debs.
Oh my goodness, where do I start? So I think one of the questions that I've been asked most is why. And I think it's really important to kind of I'm so passionate about raising awareness, because so many women get to a certain age and say, oh, I wish I'd done that when I could, you know, but unfortunately, you know, they're over the age of 36, and so I'm really passionate about raising awareness for it. I have you know, dear friends and family members that have you know, that have been impacted by fertility struggles. I've seen what it does to, you know, what it does to women and couples and families and things. And it was one of those things where I was very much, you know, I'd had my children, I was done, I was, you know, young at the time. I was young once, but at the time, and it was one of those things I just thought, why not? You know, people ask me why, and my answer is why not? It was you know, a really simple process for me as far as I was concerned. You know, I was kept updated, and I actually, you know, the fact that it wasn't an egg bank as well. I didn't want, if I was going to go through all of this for so, I didn't want it to feel like a transaction. I wanted to know that there was someone on the other side that, you know, you know, your periods are synced up and things like that. You know, there's so many things that you're going through together. And when I was sat there, you know, doing my injections of an evening and, you know, rubbing a can of Pepsi Max over it to help with the pain and things like that, you know, and it was just kind of like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. I wonder, you know, is she doing at the same time as me? Does she know if you rub a cold can of drink, it really helps? And it was just this, you know, beautiful gift that you know, I was really fortunate enough to give 3 times. And that I'm aware of, they're, you know, two babies. So it's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, Deb, that is so lovely to hear. And how do you, well, I suppose I've got a couple of questions actually, if that's okay, is
Yeah.
how did you, first of all, how did you hear about donating eggs in the first place? Because, you know, sometimes, as you say, it is difficult to get that awareness out there of this amazing
Yeah.
thing that you can do.
Yeah. So I think it was there was a family member of mine who was really, really struggling, and my mum had mentioned egg donation, and she was about 45 at the time, and she sat there and she said, oh yeah, I was going to do it, and then I just didn't. And I was like, but why didn't you? And she was, you know, I mean, this would have been, you know, the 90s, and it was, I think, a bigger deal than it is now. We've come so far medically. You know, and I thought, oh, and don't tell me that phones don't listen, because they do. So I was then scrolling through, I think it was Twitter, and I saw an advert for the, you know, the Altrui program, and I was like, oh, that's so weird. Okay. And I just filled in my details, and then I, you know, I was doing some research as well, and then I was contacted by somebody, and we just had a chat for about 20 minutes, and it wasn't, look at us, this is what we do. It was just, tell me about you. And I just thought it was genuinely, like, the word, you know, the altruistic side, it could not be more true, because it was tell me about you, you know, what do you feel? How are you? And it was just so beautiful. And it would, yeah, so that, but even now, you know, I think it's so slept on, you know, there is not enough awareness about it. And I think people do feel that it's a bigger hassle than what it is from a donor's perspective. You know, I think people think, oh, you've got to go here, there, and everywhere every day, and you can't do this and you can't do this. And, you know, it could not be more further from the truth, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're so right. And then I suppose, obviously, you can't give away any information that may sort of identify you as whose donor you may have been, but what do you know? Not what do you know, but how much information did you get about those two babies, and how do you feel now about the parents and the babies that you helped bring into the world?
Yeah, I mean, if I think about it too much, I do get really emotional. Not from a sadness point of view, but I just think like, oh, I hope they're okay. Because I remember what I was like when I was a child, and I think, oh, you poor parents. I think, oh, and then you've got the teenage years. Oh, that'll all be coming up in a few years. So yeah, I mean, I was really fortunate enough that the first and third time I was told the outcome, and it's very much about, I think, as a donor, you have to accept the fact that as soon as those eggs leave your body, they're not yours anymore. They, you know, they belong to the, you know, the mummy and the daddy. You know, that it's theirs. And if they'd rather not say, you know, they don't have to, you know, they don't have to provide any updates, and that's absolutely fine. I think as an egg donor, you have to go in thinking, I might not ever find out, and that's okay. The first and third time I donated, you know, I wasn't told the exact month. I could sort of work it out with when my cycle was and things like that, but I obviously know the year, and I was told the sex of the babies as well.
Amazing.
And I mean, it is really amazing, because I sit there and I think, and there genuinely is not a day that goes by that I don't think of not just them, but they're family, and I wonder if there's been any more with the I don't want to say the spare eggs, but you know, the rest of the eggs that were taken at the time. And you know, we were saying, obviously I can't say on here, but we were talking about a certain milestone that was going to be reached this year with one of my eggs, which, you know, a child that was born from one of the eggs, and it is just
Yeah.
amazing. And if I could, I would just give the parents such a big hug and just say, good luck. Um, I hope they're okay.
Oh no, absolutely. And we do have a question that's came in, said, do you know the children that you've donated? And obviously that's never going to happen in the UK, in that you don't know the children. It is anonymous. However, at the age of 18, they could potentially reach out to find out who their egg donor was. So how do you feel about potentially that happening one day, of them
I,
finding out about you and potentially reaching out to meet you?
I mean, I would be absolutely fine with that. As I said, you know, I went into it with a very clear head. I was 100% confident in what I was doing, and I was really sure. And I had the most wonderful, supportive family, and things, which was, it was just beautiful. You know, it was, I thought I was so supported and looked after. But so you know, I would be more than happy. And I think it, you know, as long as their, you know, their mum and their family were okay with that, then yeah, I would love to meet them. I think it would just be absolutely incredible. But you know, because I think, and I try and sort of explain this to people when they say, oh, that's, you know, you've got a, and I think, well, no, that's just biology. And to me, you know, that woman is the mummy. That's their mummy.
Yeah.
I gave an egg.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really an important point as well, is, you know, it is sort of within the community encouraged to share with children born from donor eggs or donor sperm, that is what happened. However, there are going to be people that actually don't want that shared, and that's actually going to stay as a family secret, and that's also okay. And I suppose as a donor, you have to, you feel like you have a connection there, and you've always you know, you've always sort of had that in your mind, but you're also completely content with the fact that as long as that family are happy and are living and doing as they want,
Yeah.
then you've done your
As long as everyone's happy and healthy, I'm
yeah.
fine.
Debs, you're the most amazing person, honestly, for multiple reasons, for becoming an egg donor in itself multiple times, but actually for doing what you do now, which is raising awareness. And you do quite a lot of events with us, and you speak in person, and you come on webinars and really share your story. And I think it's just so valuable. And as you say, the more people that are aware that egg donation is is an amazing thing to do, the more people will do it, and then the more people we can help. So thank you for all you've done and all you continue to do. And I suppose on behalf of the families that you've helped as well, because, yeah, you completely changed their lives. So thank you so much for speaking, Debs. And I'm sure there'll be some questions for you at the end as well. And we've had some comments coming in saying thank you for sharing as well. So so thank you so much, Debs. So we'll move on now to, I suppose it touched on a point that Debs made about the baby being like you, and we always think about egg donation as like, if you think of it as like baking a cake, whereby the DNA of the egg, you know, is the ingredients of the egg, is the ingredients of the cake, sorry, but actually the body that the baby grows in is actually the oven, and actually how the baby, or the cake, shall we say, turns out at the end depends on the temperature of the oven, what brand of oven it is, how long it's baked for, etc. And this is this sort of nature versus nurture conversation, whereby actually, yes, the egg donor provides that DNA and that essential part, but actually you as the parent and the person that is going to carry that baby actually has a real impact on how that baby's genetics present themselves. And I suppose, Gurjinder, tell us a little bit more about this, sort of what epigenetics is.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting topic. A lot of people kind of go through egg donation and they worry about whether their baby is going to carry kind of any of their genetic traits. We kind of look at how it kind of affects and what the effects are kind of in IVF, but kind of our environment and how our genes work from kind of the moment we're conceived is all kind of brought through with the epigenetics. The well-being, the behavior of the kind of the mother during the pregnancy, things like kind of staying active, smoking, alcohol, reducing stress, it all kind of impacts the environment in which we grow. We've got really, really interesting blog on our website, which we can share the link to as well later, but it's a really kind of insightful read and it gives you a bit more information. But it's kind of, people get, I speak to so many recipients who are so worried. Obviously, the whole matching side is different. And they're like, how am I going to bond with this baby? Are they going to be like me? And again, yeah, it's a very nature versus nurture side of things. It's whatever you're kind of feeling and whatever you're doing has such a big impact on your child. You're still growing that child. Your blood is still flowing through. So yeah, it is a really interesting subject. And you know, there's so many factors that affect kind of the baby's genes and how they express themselves. And it's known as the epigenetic effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a huge topic, and I actually encourage people to go and read around it a little bit, because it's so influential on actually what genes are expressed. And I think that point that you made about the blood flow to the baby, it's you are sharing blood with that baby throughout that pregnancy. So it's also super key as well. So yeah, I'll move on to the next slide. So this is more now about the matching side of things, where Gurjinder, you're the expert. And I suppose the range of time, like the length of time that it can take for someone to be matched, to find that perfect match, can vary. But can you talk us through sort of what the averages are and how that sort of works?
Yeah, so we've actually had a really good influx of Black African donors, which this year, it's been a few months actually, and our match time used to be 6 to 12 months for a Black African donor, and we're happy to say that it's now 3 to 6 months, but in fact, probably a lot sooner than 3 to 6 months. We could probably match someone to a Black African donor within a matter of days or a matter of weeks. It just depends on what your requirements are. So yeah, really, really, really good. There's been, so much more interest from Black African donors. The word's been spread, and it's in some cultures it's not seen so much as a taboo subject anymore, whereas it used to be. People are a lot more understanding, a lot more cultures kind of are a lot more accepting of egg donation, and people are speaking about it a lot more, which is amazing. And then our match time for Caucasian donors, again, we give the match time of 3 to 6 months to manage the expectations, but again, it can happen a lot quicker. And then any other background, so for example, Asian donors, Indian donors, Black Caribbean donors, we're still saying it could be about 6 to 12 months. We are known again to match a lot sooner, but those backgrounds, don't come through as often as Caucasian and Black African donors, but they are coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's not a situation where it's like a waiting list, you register and then you go to the back of the list and people are being matched before you, because it is so bespoke. You're waiting for a donor to come on board that is the perfect match for you. So as you say, you can register, and actually if we have a donor that's just come on board and it's perfect from the outset, then amazing. But actually, when we talk about average, I suppose we talk about overall of what's sort of to be expected should there not be someone waiting there right away. But I suppose what's relevant to mention as well is our matching sort of contract that we sort of onboard you with at the beginning, is a 12-month contract. So it's extremely rare for us to get to the end of that 12 months and us to not have found a donor for you. And I suppose as well, it's also relevant to mention that we can offer you different donors within that time. If we find someone that we feel is a match and there's something that just doesn't click right for you, then we can offer you up to 4 donors potentially for you to decide when that right one comes along for you.
Yeah.
And then I suppose let's then go on to the process. So you've mentioned at the beginning you've got the donor matching, and we've said sort of 0 to 6 months as an average. But then once you've, offered that match and you've said, yes, that's my perfect donor, what is sort of the timeframes from then on?
It's about 2 to 3 months for the whole process for the donor. So that takes you up until 6 to 8 months. So that's where she'll have kind of the rest of her screening done. So the carrier type testing, it was that list of bloods and blood tests that we had at the beginning of the slide. Things like cystic fibrosis, the sexual health screening, and then for egg collection. So we give the average of 2 to 3 months. Again, it could be quicker, but we need to kind of manage the donor's expectations as well. She might have a little bit of leave. She might need to go on holiday. She might have something booked, but 2 to 3 months is the average time we give for that up until her egg collection. After that, so we can plan. We say we give about 4 to 5. It depends. So there's a bit of a quarantine time. So there's a quarantine period for embryos once they've been created, and that's about 3 months. So we're giving about 5 months-ish for everything to kind of embryos be out of quarantine for the transfers, because obviously the intended parent will need to be prepped, so they'll need to start their medication, have their protocol. But it is different for frozen and fresh eggs. Okay, so with our frozen eggs, so the eggs are kind of already there, so we don't need to kind of do the additional screening and everything. So it does differ, and we do have a frozen egg bank which we are building. It was introduced in last year, in December last year. We do have kind of, as you can see on the slide, there is a difference between fresh and frozen eggs. With the frozen eggs, they've got a really good thawing rate, 74%, which is amazing. It's really, really good. It's really high. The good thing is that the eggs are readily available, as I said before. So the screening's already been completed. You can purchase the eggs and you can create your embryos and start, whenever you're ready. So that could maybe just take 2 months to prep. You know how many eggs you'll receive. So you know the number of eggs that you're purchasing right from the beginning, which is really good. The price is lower than purchasing a one-to-one package with us, which I'll go through shortly, what the one-to-one is. But yeah, that is a lower price point. And then with our fresh eggs, you don't thaw the eggs, so you're not losing any on the thawing process, however many are there that you will receive. More eggs collected gives kind of a higher chance of creating more embryos. You might want to have, genetically related siblings in the future as well. It's more cost effective. You don't have to go through kind of the whole donation process from the beginning again and register and be matched to a donor. The embryos are already there. The only thing is it doesn't guarantee how many eggs you'll receive from the donor, but it usually does give a high number.
Yeah. And I suppose there's something that's in common with fresh eggs versus frozen eggs when you're coming via Apricity, and that is that you still get the personalized matching service. So with the fresh eggs, that would be a similar journey to, I suppose, Debs was speaking, in that the donor goes alongside having her treatment alongside when you would be having your treatment. So, and then those eggs are donated fresh. But as you say, there can be some uncertainties with that. We don't know how many eggs are going to be collected at that point. And you have to get the timing exactly right. But then with frozen eggs, for example, it's almost as if Debs has gone through that process. She's still the same donor. She's still come for exactly the same reasons, but we've just frozen her eggs so that they're there and they're readily available when someone would need or want them. So that is the same, is that matching process. You still get the child with photos, you still get that full profile, and the donor is the same person. It's just dependent on when they were able to donate and when you were ready to receive them. So yeah, so there is a difference, but there are also similarities. And then I suppose as well, it's not a typical egg bank as such. So as Gurjinder mentioned earlier, if you go to another egg bank, it's sort of, you get a list and you get very minimum sort of detail about the donor. Whereas we have almost this bespoke matching service, but you have a choice of eggs within that. And then I suppose to talk a little bit more about the packages themselves. So we'll break them down slightly in a second, but actually all our packages as standard, we consider them to be all inclusive. And by all inclusive, what we mean by that is quite frequently when you go to other clinics, you might pay for the eggs on their own, and then you might pay for your treatment separately, and then you might pay for your blood tests separately and your medications separately and all your consultations, etc., etc. And that sort of thing can mean you don't often know what the cost is going to be upfront. And it means that throughout the whole process, you just feel like you're on a conveyor belt of constantly paying more and more. And it might be that something unexpected comes up, that actually you need a really high dose of medication, or you need more scans than you thought you did originally, for example. Whereas actually Apricity's model, with egg donation and across our other treatments that we do as well, is that everything you could possibly need is included. So that is us finding that perfect donor for you and going through that extensive matching process that Gurjinder has obviously gone through in detail. It's all of the screening for the donor, all of the scans, the blood test, the unlimited counselling that the donor and yourselves would have, all of your blood tests, all of your medication, consultations, the embryology to make sure that they're selecting the best embryos, the embryo transfer for yourself, pregnancy blood test, and actually that early pregnancy scan as well. And then I know Gurjinder mentioned briefly at the beginning about, but that was also access to the Apricity advisors the whole way through via the app on extended hours, to make sure that you've got that constant support. And we almost call that we almost say it's like a fertility advisor in your pocket. So whenever you may need to speak to someone, if you want that extra little bit of reassurance of just, oh, I'm feeling a bit iffy today, can I just have some TLC? That is what our advisors are for, and also to guide you through your medications, your scans, your appointment reminders, etc. It also covers all the HFEA fees, so the regulatory fees, and 1 year of storage for your embryos as well. So actually that's how our packages are built. That's sort of our model, and that's how we want to continue, because we think that is the fairest way to price ourselves, so that it's fully transparent to you up front. You know exactly what it's going to cost. There's no hidden surprises along the way, and it doesn't matter if you need more, it's all covered. So that's sort of how the model of our pricing works. And then I suppose, Gurjinder, would you be able to go into more specifically the difference between the egg donation packages that we have?
Yeah, so we've got our one-to-one fresh egg package, which I mentioned before, and this is where you'll receive all of the eggs collected from the donors. They're all exclusively for you in that cycle. They're not shared with anyone else. There's no guaranteed number, however. There's an average number that we say is between 16 to 18, but it could be more and it could be less. Okay. With the one-to-one package, the donor, although you're receiving all the eggs in that one cycle, the donor can come back and donate again to another family. So they're for you in that one cycle, but not exclusively kind of forever. And then we have the 8 fresh egg package. So this is where you're guaranteed to receive 8 fresh eggs from a donor's egg collection. So you're guaranteed a number. What's happening with this package is the donor is usually collecting more than 8 eggs. So you will receive eight fresh eggs. The remainder of the eggs collected will be banked and put into our frozen egg bank for another intended parent or recipient to purchase in the future. So the eggs are being split. Okay. The good thing is that you know how many eggs you're receiving is a guaranteed number. And then we have our frozen egg packages. There's a range of frozen egg packages that we have. They can be thawed to create the embryos. The minimum number of frozen eggs you can purchase is 4, and the maximum is 11. Again, the benefit is it can be quite quick. You can start the process a lot quicker with the frozen eggs. And then we've also got packages where we offer embryo creation treatment. So they're surrogacy packages. So we have an 8-egg, and then we've got a 12-egg package that we offer for our intended parents that are looking to use embryos in donor eggs to create embryos in future use in surrogacy.
Oh, thank you, Gurjinder. And I think this is something that people quite often want to talk to you about in detail, actually, when you speak to them on the phone or via video call, because picking the right package for you, it really depends on you personally, what your intent is and actually what's important to you. So yeah, I suppose, and it also depends on what donor is what your perfect donor situation is as well. So yeah, I think we haven't gone into the prices of these, but as I say, we are transparent on pricing, so it's all on our website, and Gurjinder is also happy to sort of discuss more should you want to speak to her afterwards as well. And I suppose more on the pricing side of it is what your options are. So we can always, if you have the funds to pay outright, there is also, you can always do that, but actually lots of us aren't fortunate enough to have money just sitting waiting for us to be able to pay out for these sorts of things. So we do have two options to be able to support you financially. So the first one is Can Do, sorry, and this is essentially a personal loan lender that we are partnered with, that will give you a loan dependent on your credit score to pay for your treatment. And this means you would pay back in fixed monthly payments, so you know upfront exactly what your outgoings then would be over how many years you would like. You also can find out whether this would be suitable for you immediately, so you get an instant decision. So you can actually do that even before you decide to go ahead or not with your treatment, so that you know if it's a possibility for you. The other option is Gaia. Now, Gaia is a specialist sort of IVF sort of protection service, I suppose. And how their model works is that you would pay an upfront, what they call protection fee, and then you only pay for your treatment when you have a child. So what it does, it protects you against if you're unsuccessful in the treatment and you don't end up having a child. So if you do end up having a child, then fantastic. Obviously, that's what we aim for in every situation. If you then do have a child, that is when you would then start fixed monthly repayments at 0% interest. Yeah, that's how their model works. And then if you don't have a child, the amount you pay back is discounted if you decide to end your treatment sooner. But actually, if you continue your treatment for all 3 cycles, you will never pay anything back. So it's a really good offering if you want to take into account your sort of risks or not associated with the success. But their eligibility, it's not just credit score, they also take into account your medical history as well, such as BMI and things like that. So they're 2 good options. They some suit people better than others, but the good thing is you can apply for both of these and find out if you're eligible, as I say, before you even start treatment. So it's really good to know where you stand. And then I suppose to talk about a little bit Apricity, and we've touched on this a little bit before, about if you were to find that perfect egg donor and actually be starting treatment with us, what would that treatment pathway look like for you? And I suppose the key points here is we're slightly different from other clinics in we're all about trying to make the experience about you. We're trying to make it revolve around you and reduce your stress as much as possible. So if you think about a normal sort of IVF cycle and you're going to choose one that has the highest success rates, that may not be really close to your home. So it might be that you have to travel in order to get to that clinic. And in a normal clinic, you would be traveling there up to 10 times in a cycle. Whereas actually how we work is that you can still go to that clinic if you come with Apricity. However, we would do your non-essential face-to-face appointments, we would do them virtually. So all of your doctor's consultations and your nurse consultations would be done over video call like we are today. Your scans and your blood tests can often be done from home or at a local scan centre close to your home. And they can be done in different places around the UK as well. So in order to minimize that disruption, if you're going away for the weekend, or you're going to Centre Parks, up north or something like that for the week, you could actually go and have a scan in a clinic near there. And actually, we only ask you to come into that treating clinic around 2 times in your whole treatment. So it's really about making it focused on you and to have as little stress as possible. We've also mentioned the app as well that we have, which means you have constant access to your advisor 7 days a week, and we offer unlimited counselling as well. And we think this is so important, in particular for people that are going through egg donation treatment and egg donors themselves. As Debs mentioned, it's a really big decision, and we want to make sure our donors are looked after and supported as well. We're also really proud of our success rates. So this is something where when we first launched Apricity, we had a hypothesis that actually, if we have lower stress in an IVF cycle, we're more likely to have higher success rates. And we're really seeing that actually be proven correct now. So we're 29% higher than the average UK success rate, which we are so proud of. And whenever we have a baby born, all of our teams celebrate, because that's why we're here. That's what we're here to do. And then I also mentioned as well about transparent pricing. And that's really important, because I think when you know you need fertility treatment, in particular when you need multiple rounds of fertility treatment, or you're going for egg donation treatment after trying with your own eggs multiple times, it's really important to know where you stand financially and to have that support as much as possible. So that's what we stand for as a clinic, and that's how we work, and that's sort of how we may be different from potentially other clinics you've been to before as well. And this is just a little example of the app that we spoke about. So you can see here, this is someone that's speaking to one of our advisors, and it's almost like texting your friend. It's really personal, and you really get to know people because they support you the whole way through. And also another thing to do with our success rates was always about making sure people adhere to the process. So if people take their medication late, or if they miss their appointments, then they're less likely to have a successful cycle. So actually our app is really supportive in making sure that everything is on time and you're reminded and kept up to date. And then here you'll see Gurjinder in the middle here. She is one of our beautiful advisors, and these are just a few from our team. And these are the people that are at the end of the phone, at the end of the app, and that are actually caring for you and caring for our donors. And Debs, I know you know Abby very well, who's one of the advisors on there who you've spoken to, who took you through the process. We are real humans, and we care, and we're here for you. And that's what they're the core of our company, actually, of our clinic, is the people that work with us for you. And then I suppose I've just put this slide on here, which is actually, what do our patients say? And I don't want you to take our word for it. I actually would encourage you to go and look at Doctify and read some of the reviews that some of the patients have said. We actually have a lot of people on here that have gone through egg donation. I think there's just an additional bit of gratitude when a baby is born through egg donation. It's like they're extra special. So there are lots of reviews on there. So I really encourage you to take a little look because they're really lovely to read. And then I suppose I'm going to move on to questions now. We've got over 10 minutes left, and we've had loads of questions coming in. And thank you, Gurjinder, for answering some as we went along that came in. But we also had a lot sent in beforehand as well. So I think I'll probably ask, let me have a little look at what one I should ask first. Let me see. So there's a question here that says, can I be treated with both egg and sperm donation, as I'm a solo parent and I'm 46 and I'm considering donation? So Gurjinder, what would your answer to this be?
Yes, absolutely. I speak to a lot of solo parents, so we can obviously provide the donor eggs. We don't have a sperm bank, but we do have donor sperm banks that we can recommend. So I'd be happy to kind of have a call and kind of go through everything we can recommend. But yeah, absolutely, you can definitely come through and we can help.
Absolutely. And someone, well, we had a few people saying sort of, I'm 42, could I have egg donation treatment? I'm 46, I'm 48. So what's the sort of age range that people can come to us for treatment?
Yeah, so we treat women up until the age of 50 and over 50 in exceptional circumstances. If you're over the age of 45, you do need to complete, a series of tests. They're called well woman tests. They consist of things like a BMI check, blood pressure, a mammogram, and various other things. And it's just to ensure that it's safe for you to carry and then deliver. And we can help arrange them, and we can recommend some obstetricians as well who can write letters to help kind of support. So yeah, up until 50, over 50, and we can speak to you about any kind of tests that need to be done.
Perfect. And as someone else has asked as well, do I need any tests as someone coming to you as an intended parent? And I suppose that's a yes, but the tests depend on your age potentially and your
Yeah,
background.
exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. And one of the other questions here is about fresh versus frozen eggs. And it says, do fresh and frozen eggs, how do they compare, and what do you have more chance of conceiving? And I suppose it's only that thaw risk, isn't it, Gurjinder, that
Yeah.
is actually the difference. Can you
Yeah,
explain that a little bit?
Yeah, the statistics in fresh and frozen eggs are very similar due to kind of the technology involved now, and it is just thawing risk. But yeah, very, very similar. It's quite the same.
And for someone that doesn't really know sort of that process, that thaw risk, can you explain what that is and actually what we're sort of talking about there?
Yeah, so it's defrosting the eggs that are stored. So it's when they're being defrosted, maybe some of them won't survive that process. So if you purchase kind of let's say 8 frozen eggs, you might have the risk of losing maybe 2 of them. So you'll be left with kind of 6 eggs, and then obviously we'll create the embryos from those 6 eggs.
Absolutely. And then someone else has asked, how much does it cost to have donor eggs? And could I have multiple births from donor eggs? And I suppose I mentioned before, we haven't put specific prices on the slides today, but please do visit our website, or we'll show you in it shortly how to book in a call with Gurjinder and the team to sort of go through the prices that would be relevant for you. But I suppose can you have multiple births from donor eggs?
Yeah, so with the donor eggs, if you have kind of a large number of embryos created, and if you're successful after the first, second transfer, you can use those embryos that are stored for your next transfer to have another child, to have a sibling for your child. So yeah, most definitely, and that's what a lot of people kind of go for. Some of our particular packages, which kind of give you a chance of creating a higher number of embryos to have that option in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that's what Debs referred to earlier as her spare eggs as such,
Yeah.
wasn't it, Debs? But how does that make you feel, Debs, I suppose, thinking that there could be a whole family of children being born as a produce of your eggs? So how do you feel?
Goodness, well, other than abject terror for the parents, I think I think no, I think it's absolutely wonderful. And I remember I wasn't really too sure how it worked when I did my first donation, and when I found out it was successful, I remember saying to the altruistic team, I said, oh, let me know if they want any brothers or sisters, and they were like, no, don't worry, they've got the rest of your eggs for that. So I thought, oh, okay. But yeah, no, I think it's amazing, and it's I just want to just take 2 seconds and just say go back to what we were talking about earlier about how the egg is the ingredients, but the mum is the oven and things like that. And a really one of my closest friends who also works with Apricity, a lady called Sam, she's one of my closest friends, and we actually found out that didn't find out, she knew she had her daughter from egg donation. And I was so shocked because looking at this little girl, I just look at her and I'm like, but Sam, she's you.
Yeah.
She is you. And and I said, I know that sounds crazy to say, but that little girl
Yeah.
she is the absolute double of her, and it's absolutely incredible how it works. So I just wanted to just say that really
Yeah.
quickly. Sorry to jump back on that, but I thought, oh, I've got to say it.
No, it's so lovely to hear, and it's a really common thing you do here as well. And I think that's probably a combination of, you know, the impact that the carrier of that pregnancy has, but also the importance of personalized matching and actually having someone that is picked specifically for you as well. So I think it's so amazing to hear that sort of thing. I know one of the questions that's just come in is I'm not sure which package would be best for me, and are you able to help me understand based on my circumstances? And I can see Gurjinder's responding to that now.
Yeah.
And absolutely, what I'll do is I'll leave
Yeah.
this QR code up just as we're answering some more of the questions. But if you scan this, it will go straight to our booking system where you can actually book in to talk with Gurjinder to discuss further based on your circumstances. And as you say, this is such a personal thing. We've covered, you know, sort of the real general and options that could be available to you, but there's going to be so much more that will be very specific. So come and speak to Gurjinder and see actually if it's something that you would want to pursue. So another question we've got here is, could you describe the family history of your UK-based Caucasian donors? So what elements of family history do you find out? And they've asked a specific question here of, have most of their families been living on British Islands for several generations, or have they usually come from other countries more recently? And I suppose that depends on their ethnicity in general, Gurjinder, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you get to find out the ethnicity of the donor's parents, so mother and father. So that is disclosed on the matching, so you do get to find that out. We do have donors that come from other countries, or maybe parents are born in other countries, and again that is disclosed. But we don't go as far back as grandparents or kind of further into kind of other generations. But if it's a donor from another country, for example, we do get donors that are European, you know, from a Mediterranean background. They do disclose, and we just have to ensure that they've got an NHS number and they're able to reside in the UK for the amount of time we need them to be here. So they've got valid visa and everything. But yes, we can disclose kind of the parents' ethnicity as well.
Absolutely. And then another question that we've got here is how many embryos are transferred in each cycle? And this, I think the answer will depend on what country you reside in. I think if you go to the States, you hear lots of multiples of 4 and 5, etc. But we have much stricter laws in the UK, don't we?
Yeah, you just need to be really careful. So typically it's one embryo transferred at one time. It can be discussed with the consultant. It's at discretion of the consultant what would be, you know, fit to be safe for you and any child or children born from that transfer. Because obviously if you transfer more than one embryo at one time, let's say it's 2, they could multiply. You could have twins, triplets, quadruplets. We just need to make sure it's safe. So that can be discussed on a case-by-case basis with consultant, but it's usually the one transfer at the one time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about safety, isn't it? And making sure that it's the best for the person that's going to carry that pregnancy. And then another question we have here is when are the embryos frozen and transferred? Is it day 3 fresh and day 5, 6? Do you know the answer to this, Gurjinder?
It depends on the embryology side of things. So again, that's something that can be discussed a little bit later on in the process. I'm not 100% sure at this stage. It kind of depends on, you know, how the embryos they kind of how well they do and how well they're doing. So that's discussed a little bit later on with kind of medical team and embryology as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another one we have here is, what is the typical ethnicity of Black African donor eggs? So I suppose there's a range, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, we have had a big range of Nigerian donors coming through. We've also had Ghanaian donors coming through as well. We've had donors that are also from Zimbabwe, but majority of them, I would say, are Nigerian donors.
Okay, That's really interesting. And I think as well, I think one thing we haven't really mentioned is actually how we can quite well like target sort of campaigns to try and recruit certain ethnicities in certain communities. As you say, we had a really big influx of Black African recently, which was fantastic to see. But actually, if we're seeing that we're having a lot of people coming through that are wanting, as you say, more Mediterranean or specifically certain Caucasian backgrounds, like we sort of can try and recruit donors in those sorts of certain areas as well. So the final question we have here is, I suppose, about cost. So can you give me a rough idea of cost of a egg donor fresh cycle? So I suppose your two options here would be your 8 egg package or your 1-to-1 package. So can you give us an idea of just, obviously we'd encourage you to go to the website to see more in detail or speak to Gurjinder, but actually just an idea of that price point?
Yeah, so the costs, and they're all inclusive, so they vary from about £14,000 up until about £17,000. That's for the fresh egg packages. The frozen egg packages, there's various different costs for them, but that's roughly, and that would include kind of the registration fee with us. That would include the donor's compensation that they're entitled to. It includes all tests and investigations for the intended parents. It includes the medication as well, and the transfer and storage. So it's all in one prices, and you can find them on our website, as Caroline said.
Absolutely. And I'm really, really sad to say that we've actually run out of time, and we've got more questions come in, and I wish we could go through them, but we're actually at time. But what we will make sure we do is we will reach out to the people that have asked questions and respond to you individually. But I suppose when it's more personal questions about your individual case, I can see we've got one here about will you liaise with my clinic about my previous cycles and things. I'd really encourage you to have a swipe of this QR code and to book a call in with Gurjinder, because we can answer the questions much more personally. But I really do thank everyone for joining. It's been a really great discussion, and thank you to Gurjinder for all of your insights. It's been really great to speak to the person that speaks to people every day and does that magical matching that people rely so heavily on. So thank you, Gurjinder, and thank you to Debs as well. I mentioned before, you're an angel. We love you, we appreciate you, and you are one of a kind. So thank you to both of you, and thank you to everyone for joining, and we hopefully will speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.